Kyle said, Regan is the player that just has a little bit of bad luck of appearing on stream. It's great to get him here.
Yep.
And Michael Bergerac, you know, popping off with the Hisuian Gudra. The idea here, of course, is just to wall out your opponent. We know a lot of these other decks, with like other Lost Box decks, Regis that are attacking with just basic Pokemon, can't really reach the damage numbers that are required. But when we look at Lugia and those powerful energies, it's going to be a tall order, I think, from this position.
Both copies of Boss's Orders in the prize cards for Michael Bergerac. That definitely could be a problem. If he can draw one early, it maybe will be manageable. But that is definitely a little awkward. He's not going to have access to those supporter gusting effects. Maybe he's going to have to rely on escape rope or something like that to force something up from the bench.
When you're playing against Lugia, it's much more important to get very specific knockouts to keep your opponent under pressure. If they show any sort of weakness, you can snipe that Archeops, shut down their plans of getting multiple attackers back to back to back. Regan with 2 Archeops in the prize cards right now. It's going to be difficult to get set up, but we've seen it time and time again, Chip. Players have Archeops in the prizes, but they still pull 2 immediately and then discard with the Ultra Ball. A little bit of extra setup going on. I think there was a broken sleeve there.
Looks like it, yeah. I think one of those cards that was in Regan's prizes, judges noticed that, oh, looks like that sleeve is dinged. That's normal. It happens in tournament play. You're shuffling a lot. You're going in and out of the deck. So it is just bound to happen at some point. So we're pulling out some extra sleeves, make sure there's plenty on hand. So if anything else happens, we can get that swapped out really quickly. But yeah, Regan, like you mentioned, on the Lugia, a couple Archeops in the prizes is not too bad, right? You've still got 2 more. Luckily for Regan, he is choosing to still play the full 4 copies. We do see some people be a little greedy with the consistency sometimes and drop down to just 3 copies, usually accompanying that with the Professor Burnett to guarantee discard those Pokemon. But yeah, Regan here with the 4 copies is going to need to find them though, so we're going to have to see if his opening hand can have those Evolution Incense in them, maybe some Ultra Balls in order to get those pieces down into the discard pile as quickly as possible. And I'm interested as well to see how exactly this matchup is going to play out. It is close. There's a lot of nuance here, and it does appear like Regan is going first.
Regan starting off with Manaphy in the active. Gets the Oranguru, a fantastic consistency card. This allows, of course, the players to just put that card on top, save it for later, especially when you're going for Marnie in the same turn or Professor's Research. Keep that important card for the next draw. Evolution Incense is fantastic as well off the top. Going to grab that Archeops. Even though there's 2 in the prizes, we can still pull it together here, Chip, to get those other remaining 2 into the discard pile to bring those back with the Summoning Star.
Yeah, this is looking pretty solid. Regan will be able to grab an Archeops here, and I believe I saw a Quick Ball in the hand, so that is an easy way to get the Archeops down in the discard pile and also grab him out that Lugia V that he is currently missing.
It's a lot of setup that is required, but these Lugia players tend to make it look easy, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. Regan is, of course, just taking a longer look at the first part of the deck here, counting the prizes, making sure that everything is in order, recognizing that those Archeops are missing. And we've seen players sometimes adjust to going for single Archeops, and especially in a matchup like this, where if Gudra V gets set up, you're still going to be a lot of work to be done with the powerful colorless energy. Regan knows he can't really go for that option, has to go for the remaining 2 Archeops.
On Michael's side, he did start the Hisuian Gudra V, which is not your best starter. You really want to get a Comfy in the active pretty early, and you can't move Gudra out of the active with things like Scoop Up Net, and you can't attach an energy to it and retreat it. It does have a pretty large 3 retreat cost. So the only way Michael's going to be able to remove this Gudra from the active spot is going to be with a switch or an escape rope.
And we'll see if Michael does have it. We haven't actually gotten any eyes on his hand as of yet. Aurora Energy attached to the Manaphy, preparing to retreat this from the active, and just a very mild first turn for Regan. Michael's now opening us up with a Quick Ball, discarding Ordinary Rod. Going to look through the deck, grabbing a Comfy, I imagine, maybe Radiant Greninja, depending on what the rest of the hand is looking like.
Right away, Michael is checking these energies, and this is super important in all of these Lost Box decks, these Lost Zone Engine decks, I should say, is knowing exactly how many energies you have available and taking note of what is potentially in your prize cards so that you can place your energies properly with your Mirage Gates moving down the line. And also, if you find energies off of things like Colress's Experiment or Flower Selecting, you have to know which ones you're okay with losing.
You have that number in your mind. I can spare 1 water energy. Hopefully, you know, Michael won't have too many hard decisions. I think that we got eyes on a switch in the hand as well, so the Gudra will be able to get out of the active. Finds the Luminion V off of the quick ball in order to grab Colress's experiment. Michael going second means he can use the supporter this turn. I love this opener chip.
Yeah, the Luminion can be a bit of a liability. You don't love putting it into play because that is a pretty easy 2 prize cards for Lugia to take at some point in the game whenever you're trying to be the damage-reducing deck. But I think that was Michael's best take. He needs to get the Colress rolling and is hoping here to find some
Radiant
comfies.
Greninja and Comfy act.
Okay.
Oh, this is pretty tough. There's 2 metal energy in the hand as well, but you also want to take the Radiant Greninja and the Comfey. And we'll have to see if the energy check that Michael just did is going to give him proper information about how many of these metal energies he can give up.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to probably be lost zoning the Gudra and the metal here, but we'll see what he decides to go with. He could be double metal going down. That is a little sketchy.
Yeah,
that's what he's got to go with, though.
Yeah, there's 4 in the list overall.
So now he's going to have to, I mean, knowing, this is why checking his energies was important. He knows he has 2 available. So he's running a little bit on fumes there as far as the energy count. He knows he only has 2 metals available, but that is enough to attack with 2 Gudra.
And with Radiant Greninja being selected off of the Colress's experiment, we can get the Comfey down. And now Escape Rope gets the Gudra out of the active into a flower selecting. We've got Temple of Sinnoh and Scoop Up Net being offered.
Yeah,
Temple of Sinnoh is going to be fantastic here.
Temple of Sinnoh is really good, but Scoop Up Net lets you potentially reuse this Comfey. You can Scoop Up Net it and switch and Scoop Up Net again. He already has a Scoop Up Net in the hand. So it's a tough call. Do you grab the Sinnoh and try to slow Regan down just a little bit? Looks like the answer is no, and he's going to value that Scoop Up Net instead, trying to get some more flower selectings here.
Yeah, going for a much more aggressive line. I think with this deck, of course, the Gudra V-Star, you need the Mirage Gate online very quickly to get this attack powered up, to get that rolling iron up and going. And so now Radiant Greninja being promoted into the active after scooping up that Comfey.
And honestly, I think Michael's going to be pretty happy that Regan chose to send up the Lugia V off of that escape rope, because it's going to allow Michael to actually get off a decent amount of damage on it with that Cramorant. We know is already sitting in the hand. We know there is a switch, and we know that now there's 4 cards in the Lost Zone. So we can see that Cramorant hit for 110 damage into this Lugia, setting it up to be 2-hit KO'd by a Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
And after that Metal Energy was offered alongside the Battle VIP Pass, you've got to take it. There's that switch finally being used. Going to bring that Cramorant up into the active. 4 cards in the Lost Zone. And it does come to fruition, Chip. 110 damage onto the Lugia V is going to be beautiful for down the line when Michael can swing back around to pick up those 2 prizes.
And Michael should be assuming that Regan has a decent enough hand. Regan did choose to discard Marnie, and we will see Michael put that 3rd Metal Energy into play. I think he's assuming, hey, there's no shot Regan's going to pull off a Boss's Orders or Serena on my Gudra, in addition to getting 2 Archeops in the discard pile. That's just pretty unreasonable, so we will indeed see that research to draw 7 new cards. Is there a way to discard 1 more Archeops? I don't think so.
I'm not seeing the discard. We've got an Aurora in hand. We could get that manual attachment. That's probably the best bet here, Chip.
Yeah, he already threw down that V-Guard energy as well. So I think, I actually don't even see a Lugia V-Star. I don't see an Ultra Ball. Hoping for this Orangaroo to help out.
Got to be big.
Nah, it's just another supporter.
So it's just, this is another just mediocre turn. Benches a Lugia V, gonna have to pass, it looks like. There's a choice belt.
We'll probably at least read the wind here, discard a card, and then draw 3 more. Give yourself a little something else to work with, but this is a pretty slow start from Regan, and this actually opens up Michael to just be able to spit innocently this Lugia V once again in order to 2-hit knock it out.
Yep, so there is indeed the read the win, and this is kind of a repeat of what we saw in the last round, right? Where Lugia is trying to take down a Lost Zone deck and just gets off to an incredibly slow start. And now with Colress's experiment, Michael's going to be up to 6 cards in the Lost Zone, just needs 1 more flower selecting, and then Mirage Gate is online to get the Gudra set up. I can see the V-Star being offered here.
Yeah, it's got a V-Star. There's a Colress in here. Big Parasol as well, something that Michael probably wants to hang on to, and indeed will make sure that that's one he keeps. Looks like it was 2 Gudras in that. So he does play a 3-3 line, and looks like the other 2 are in the hand.
Wow, so there's the double evolution in the Gudra V-Stars. A lot of great supporters as well to respond to any of Regan's plays from this point. And again, just 1 more for the Mirage Gate.
And Michael is going to be content just taking the first knockout here. Cramorant putting in a little bit more work than maybe Michael anticipated, and now with 6 cards in the Lost Zone, he's only 1 flower selecting away from activating that Mirage Gate and fully powering up this Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
Regan promoting the second Lugia V that was benched last turn. We've got to find Lugia V-Star here. I believe there was one in the hand, or at least an Ultra Ball.
Not just yet. It just is a quick ball, it seems. And man, this hand is really awkward. He's got to research and a ton of energies. He cannot afford to discard all of those valuable resources. So he's going to have to play Luminion V and use Luminous Sign just to get a Marnie in this spot.
We've seen decks like this before, Chip. You know, they want to just go through the deck as quickly as possible. They don't mind researching away a full hand if it's bad. But these energies, there's no way for Lugia to recover them from the discard pile.
No.
So we use the Marnie, we use the Luminion to shuffle them back into the deck. And Regan is trading this incredibly large hand in for 5 cards. And one of these 5 has to be, at the very least, Lugia V-Star. And we'll try to make something else happen. Are there any Archeops yet in the discard pile for Regan? Just the one?
Just one single Archeops. And with 2 in the prizes off of this 5-card Marnie, Regan needs to find an Archeops and a Lugia V-Star, or a way to get those 2 pieces and get that Archeops in the discard pile especially.
All right, so here comes the Marnie. No other good cards that you want to discard or try to thin down with the quick ball. Michael Bergerac also, you know, losing out on a pretty big hand, but the setup has already been complete, right? With the Gudra V-Star.
Oh man,
on the bench.
Regan doesn't have it. Regan's hand is terrible. He has absolutely nothing. The thing, he's got Primate Wisdom to maybe search, but no, it doesn't get anything else. He can play that Capture Energy to shuffle the deck so that he doesn't top deck the useless card he just put on top. That might be what we see him do. I think the... Oh, no, he's going to concede. Yeah. I like this scoop from Regan. He, with only a few minutes gone on the clock, he knows it's unlikely he's going to win that game, even though it wasn't quite over yet. You know, Michael didn't have a way to knock out that Lugia V-Star next turn. So, with the fact, or sorry, the Lugia V, since it has 220 HP, of course, Gudra only deals 200. Regan just felt like he was going to be too far behind on the tempo, decided to concede the game and make sure there's plenty of time for him to try to play a Game 2 and Game 3.
You need that extra time when you want to get these 2 wins back to back, especially versus a Lost Zone deck. Even though there are 2 prize Pokemon in there with the Gudra V-Star, the games will conclude a little bit faster, hopefully, once you get set up. It's just the fact that also with all the flower selectings and the decision making, it does eat up a lot of time on its own.
Right.
So very, very smart scoop indeed, Chip.
Absolutely, yep. Lost Zone decks just naturally can take a long time, like you said, and especially when players have really tough decisions to make, it almost feels like it draws them out even more. So, yeah, I think it's a tough skill to learn in the Pokemon TCG, when to concede, because you never want to scoop up a game like just instinctually. You feel like I've always got a chance, and even if I don't win, I want to see how it would have played out, maybe see what I could have done differently. But Regan recognizes that the time is more valuable than any potential information he could gain from the couple of minutes that he would lose otherwise.
And at this point in the Swiss rounds, the players are trying to go for wins. They aren't trying to get ties. So Regan wants to make sure there's plenty of time left on the clock for him to cook.
Absolutely. Again, these players, if either of them wins, they will be locked up for a spot in our top 8 of this event.
But if you're in Michael's position, you're feeling pretty good. You get that win, easy peasy, game 1. You've got 2 shots at closing out this best of 3. And as we've seen with Lugia, it's the same with Lost Box. You can get some very awkward hands, some very slow starts.
Regan having a mulligan here. I'll have to shuffle in until he can find a new basic Pokemon, and Michael's going to get 1 additional card to start this one. And I gotta say, Adam, I did get a little bit of a peek at Michael's hand over here in our other shot, our other monitor here, and it is not very good. He's starting Drapion, first off, which is just bad. You don't want to do that. He does have Luminion V in the hand to maybe fetch out a Colress on turn 1, but other than that, it was like double Mirage Gate, Roxanne, Temple of Sinnoh, just really not useful stuff for him right now.
And so another mulligan, though.
Yeah, every additional card, Michael's going to...
It's going to matter, because Michael's got 3 copies of Battle VIP Pass, and that's exactly what you need to open this game up. Get some comp phase, get an escape rope. So he's got a couple other shots at maybe pulling this hand back from the brink.
See some prizes going out. A 1/1 Gudra to start is pretty awkward. One of those VIP Pass, and another Gudra. Michael is only going to have 1 Gudra V to work with, and looking at this deck list, Adam, I don't see a Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Oh my goodness. So the 1 Gudra V, and what's going to make this even more terrible, Chip, is if it's offered from a flower selecting next to another really hard decision, you've got to take the Gudra V. And
Right.
he might lose out on some other really important resource if it comes down to it.
Michael's hand did not get much better.
Oh, my
triple
goodness!
Aurora for Regan. No, that means it is impossible for him to use that amazing rare Eviltal until he takes some prize cards. That is really bad.
So the prizes are out to get both of these players now, Chip. Regan attaches the capture energy to Lugia V in the active, and we're going to start looking through the deck, and Regan's, of course, going to take this opportunity to check the prizes, and he's going to receive the bad news.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, a lot of times players will be checking for those energy cards, but also at the same time, when you know you've got to win 2 games here and it's a best of 3, sometimes you skip out on checking things you normally would in favor of trying to save a little bit of time. It looks like he will be diligent here, which is good. So hopefully he does take note of the fact that he's only got 1 Aurora energy to work with as of now.
And what basic is Regan going to start us off with here, Chip? What do you think?
Yeah, off this capture energy, you'd probably just see an Oranguru potentially. Michael's deck does play a pretty decent count of Marnie typically. I don't actually know. Yeah, Michael himself is not playing any Marnie, but usually you expect to see Marnie from these Gudra decks.
They love the disruption as well. Once you get the Gudra V-Star set up, you want to make it difficult for your opponent to find that knockout, and the Marnie would make sense. And
this is perfect. This is what every Lugia player dreams of right there, opening up with Ultra Ball and 2 Archeops.
Okay, so now with Regan having some awkward prizes, the Archeops is going to hit the discard pile. Lugia V-Star grabbed off the Ultra Ball.
Yep.
But the next part is finding some early KOs to get those Aurora energies out of the prize cards.
And what I expect Regan to do here is use Primate Wisdom, put that Lugia V-Star on top of the deck so he guarantees that he will be able to get off a Summoning Star next turn.
And sure enough, the card grabbed from the top of the deck thanks to the Oranguru looked like another supporter.
Yeah, potentially.
Oh,
Actually,
it was a
another
powerful
energy.
Okay. So just going to pass the turn. The setup is basically complete. Just has to pull the trigger on it next turn. Over to Michael. We've got Comfey off the top, and the Luminion is used as you mentioned. Chip going to look through, find that Colress's Experiment here on the first turn.
Yeah, once again, this hand is awkward. There's really kind of it's going to be tough for Michael to navigate this spot, and it's really going to depend on what he sees from this Colress's Experiment, which we expect to be incoming here shortly. Interesting to note, Michael does play 2 copies of Roxanne and also a Cheryl, not a typical supporter count that you would expect to see from the Gudra deck, but he's got some interesting techs in here. He's checking his Pokemon right now, so he is going to get the bad news that he's down 2 Gudra V.
So the final Gudra V has to be the hope, the big wall that holds back this Lugia. The issue now is that with Lugia V and Lugia V-Star set up, Archeops in the discard pile, you know, that Primal Turbo is just going to start pulling out powerful energy, putting down tons of damage onto the Gudra V.
Colress's Experiment, I think a pretty obvious grab here for Michael, and is hoping to find some Comfeys, Battle VIP Pass, maybe some Switch, something like that. Drapion might be the actual worst starter to have in this matchup. It's pretty useless as an attacker. It's really a tech in here for that Mew matchup. You can power it up to attack, but it's not ideal.
5 cards off the top with Colress's Experiment. Radiant Greninja is offered up. This is a great way to get even more cards for this turn, Chip.
Yeah,
Michael
and
has
a capture energy as well could make sure he guarantees getting that 1 Gudra.
And no Comfey yet, so we can still hopefully get some flower selecting somehow weaved in this turn. Got to find a way to get the Drapion out of the active, of course.
That is going to be the difficult part at this spot.
Radiant Greninja, Capture Energy selected.
Temple of Sinnoh as well. We know that can be a really valuable card against Lugia, and that might be Michael's chance here. His setup is not as good as it was. He's got some kind of awkward prizes, so maybe he's hoping Temple of Sinnoh could slow Regan down just a little bit. Does hit the VIP pass off concealed cards, though.
Okay, so now we're cooking. VIP pass is great. And what's nice about picking up the Temple of Sinnoh, before Michael was in a bit of a better spot, didn't mind going and was just going to send that to the lost zone. It was totally acceptable. And Regan now showing the Archeops in the discard pile. The Temple is going to be a much bigger part of this second game. Battle VIP Pass does find that Gudra V and a Comfey.
Yep, this is great, and it works out really nicely as well because Michael can now get his energy attachment for turn onto the Gudra. He doesn't have to use capture energy on something else in order to get the Gudra out of the deck.
And the hand is pretty massive from here, Chip.
Yeah.
We've got the rock sands that aren't going to come into play until much later. I believe there's 2 temples in the hand, and capture energy is going to attach to Gudra, which is what you love to see. You get to search through for another Comfey being pulled to the top of the list here and set onto the bench.
And even though Michael already had a Comfey in hand, he wanted to grab this one out of the deck because it thins 1 card out. So now he's less likely to draw into a Comfey, which might be useless to him later on. Even though he's stuck with 1 in his hand, he would rather have an extra 1 in his hand than have an extra 1 in his deck.
Just passes the turn after attaching the big parasol. We're back over to Regan. Lugia V in the active spot. And oh, what a surprise. Lugia V-Star off of the top, thanks to Primate Wisdom.
This game could be pretty much over this turn if Regan had a Boss's Orders or Serena. It doesn't look like he does right now, but I feel like Michael would almost instantly concede if Regan just was able to gust and KO the Gudra. He could look for it, and I think he's going to at least see what he gets here off of this Oranguru, and it kind of makes sense as well. You might as well put this card back before you shuffle and search the deck. And he draws Luminion. Oh my goodness. This can go get that Serena or Boss if he wants.
And so Luminion does come down with that Luminous Sign ability. Looking through the deck, he knows exactly what he wants. Where is it? There's the Serena. This has the effect to gust up a V Pokemon from the bench. Michael knows that this remaining Gudra V is going to go down, and the rest of them are in the prize cards.
He does still have 1 Ordinary Rod to work with. 1 is already in the Lost Zone. We'll see what he does. He might try to stick it out, but I think there's a decent chance Michael's going to concede. Let's see what happens, though.
What if Regan just takes the 2 prizes from the Drapion?
There's no way. I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that Regan went and got the Serena off of the Luminion, he's definitely going for this KO. I mean, if this is what you want to do with this deck, if you can just take out Gudra before it becomes a V-Star.
already pulling it up.
Yeah, the Serena hasn't even hit the discard pile yet. Michael knows what's coming.
Yep, there's the Serena. And the attachment from the second Primal Turbo as well. This Lugia V-Star is fully powered up, and there's the knockout. Regan taking 2 prize cards, and Michael left without any pressure. Comfey's going to come up to the active, and Michael's just going to take this out a couple more turns because he already got the win in game 1. He can play this second game out a little bit longer to see if maybe Ordinary Rod comes back here in a second.
Yeah,
Gudra V-Star being added to the hand off of Flower Selecting. Mirage Gate sent to the Lost Zone.
Yeah, I think it makes a little sense to stick it out for a bit of time. I mean, you do play double Roxanne, so there's always a chance if you find your Ordinary Rod, you can hit the Roxanne next turn. But this hand, I think, yeah, it didn't really go anywhere for Michael. He decides to scoop it up. We're going to game 3.
Game 3, very fast. But that's exactly what you want to see, Chip. Both of these players recognize the importance of having plenty of time left on the clock. Still 29 minutes in round 14. So now this is where everything is going to be put on the table. Hopefully they're going to shuffle just entirely here. I want to see good, clean prizes. I want to see both decks do exactly what they want to do. I want to see Lugia V-Star versus Gudra V-Star, and without any shenanigans with the prizes.
What a play and what a hit from Regan as well. Going for the Primate Wisdom. Just, you know, put that energy back. I might want to accelerate it anyway, and we'll just see what I get. And what do you know? It's Luminion V. There was a lot of cards, honestly, Regan could have hit there that would have allowed him to get that play off. He could have drawn Serena, could have drawn Boss, Quick Ball, Ultra Ball, or Luminion. I mean, there is so many outs. He probably had, I don't know, at least like a 30-40% chance of making that happen, and he was able to do it.
Yeah, and that was only because Michael, again, had those Gudra Vs in the prize cards. You could play that one out, absolutely, and just play towards getting the other Gudra V set up. But even if that was the case, we had that Lugia V-Star in the active with those powerful energies attached, so it was just going to keep taking knockout after knockout. And it throws off the math. These single prize decks like to just promote a single prize Pokemon and just buy themselves a lot of time, but when you add the Pokemon V into the mix, it accelerates the game a little bit more, and it puts you under more pressure once you fall behind.
Regan is starting maybe the most hated starter in the Lugia deck. He's starting that Pumpkaboo, its Pumpkin Pit ability. It's really useful in really specific scenarios if there's a Temple of Sinnoh or a Path to the Peak in play. It's really annoying to start it, though, because it's just a little single prize Pokemon. It's a little squishy as well. It's only got 60 hit points, but it's kind of chunky because it's got a big old 2 retreat cost. It's kind of hard to get out of the active.
And so hopefully that'll buy Michael a lot of time. We've got 2 quick balls in the prize cards for Regan. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult to find the Lugia Vs, etc. in the opening turns of the game, but if the remaining hand quality is good enough, that hopefully won't matter.
Oh, and Michael's hand is really good. He's got Comfey in the active. He's got Battle VIP Pass in hand. Radiant Greninja in the prizes. Galarian Zigzagoon, not the best. A Colress as well is a little awkward. The Greninja, to me, is the main thing that's tough to have prized. It's a really key card in order to help you get through the deck.
And you had called it out earlier, Chip. He's not playing any Hisuian Heavy Ball to get that out of the prizes. That's going to be a key piece of drawing through the deck that will be missing here. Flower selecting to start things off. Roxanne goes to the Lost Zone, and Temple of Sinnoh comes to the hand.
Temple of Sinnoh into the hand. We haven't really seen it have much of a factor yet. It is interesting because it's obviously good in
Battle
this
VIP
matchup,
pass.
but at the same time, it doesn't really do anything against a Lugia V-Star because Lugia's attacks are all colorless. So it doesn't really care, or its attack requirement is all colorless. So it doesn't really care if it doesn't get to use those Aurora energies or anything like that. Whenever you're attacking with Lugia specifically, Temple of Sinnoh can be much stronger in the mid and late game with this deck.
Yeah, once your opponent is maybe lost some resources, is forced to kind of throw out those Auroras, find other attackers that aren't just colorless Pokemon, that's when the Temple's really going to be mattering. And so Michael, taking a better count of the deck, can see all the Gudras and V-Stars still left in the deck and is satisfied with what he's seeing.
Yeah, going to be sad a little bit about that Greninja, but knows that he at least has more than one Gudra to work with this game. Off this VIP pass, I definitely expect at least one more Comfey, probably a Gudra as well, and an energy attachment to the Gudra could be decent. Could also understand if Michael wanted to attach to this active Comfey, retreat into the new one, and then keep on with the flower selecting chain.
And once, of course, Michael pulls just a Comfey and a Gudra, probably signals to Regan that the Radiant Greninja is in the prizes, so Regan can now start planning plays around the opponent having a little bit less card draw.
Yeah, a little less to work with, so that does make Regan's Marnies a bit stronger. It's already a pretty solid strategy against these Lost Zone engine decks, these Comfey engines. Really limiting their hand size. It can be really, really good, and Regan is indeed playing 3 copies of the Marnie just for that reason.
And with Gudra entering the fray and that second Comfey, I think that Michael is going to be off to a much better start. Of course, we've got a couple energies in the hand. You would really love to see Radiant Greninja from here, but we could see Attach Retreat, as you mentioned, Chip. Get this other Comfey into the active, get Flower Selecting number 2 online, second card now in the Lost Zone, and Gudra V-Star being offered up, 2 of them. Pretty easy choice.
Yeah, very easy choice when you see 2 of the same card. It's a little annoying to have to lose one of the Gudras. I don't think it's your first choice of what to lose. Michael will put the Temple of Sinnoh in play, and that can be really strong. The Pumpkaboo is in the active spot, and that does shut off Regan's ability to get basic Pokemon out with something like a Capture Energy. And it also means that you can't attach double Turbo to the Pumpkaboo to retreat it.
It's very awkward indeed. With this Pumpkaboo stranded in the active, it does give Michael a lot more time to naturally draw into resources. Without Radiant Greninja, we need the Flower Selectings to do a little bit more heavy lifting, and Michael's going to be hoping to get a Colress's Experiment here pretty soon.
Absolutely. Now this Evolution Instance from Regan is almost undoubtedly getting out the Archeops. My question for Regan here is, can he get multiple Pokemon onto his bench? We saw Michael really excellently utilize Escape Rope in the first game and force something active that Regan didn't really want to let take a hit, but he was forced to because of the Escape Rope being played. So if Regan can at least get 2 Pokemon down, give himself a couple of options of what to leave up to take a hit from something like a Cramorant or even potentially a turn 2 Gudra V-Star attack, that would be really nice. Let's see what he's got available.
Evolution Incense is just finding Archeops for now. This is a Pokemon that you need to discard first and bring it back into play. And then Ultra Ball comes through to discard that Archeops and find Lugia V.
It does choose to grab the Lugia V. He has a Research in hand, so if he's not planning to play that, I feel like if he's planning to play Research this turn, I maybe would have liked to have seen him grab out the Archeops, just go ahead and get 2 of them in the discard pile.
Yeah.
And it's pretty reasonable off of a 7-card Research. You're going to be able to draw a way to get a Lugia V. Now he has to find a way to get another Archeops into the discard pile.
So Lost Vacuum comes out from Regan to get rid of that Temple of Sinnoh. There's the attach return onto the Lugia V into the Professor's Research, hoping for, as you said, Chip, another basic Pokemon to give some play around the escape rope.
Looks like he does have another basic, but he doesn't have an Archeops. He's got a Quick Ball in this hand, so if he can find an Evolution Incense or something like that, he could still go get a way to get that into the discard pile next turn, but for the rest of this one, it's just going to be a pass.
So there's the pass. We could see a repeat of what happened in game number 1, escape rope into the Cramorant.
Now, there is a world where Michael could have gotten a knockout on the Lugia in this game. If he can play escape rope, if he can get to Mirage Gate, he does need just a few more cards, and if he can get the V-Star, get the extra energy, and Galarian Zigzagoon with 2 scoop-up nets, he would be able to knock out the Lugia. Unfortunately for Michael here, though, his Galarian Zigzagoon is in the prizes, so I think he'll still go for the hit on the Lugia V if he can, but he cannot quite get as strong of a play as he maybe possibly would have been able to.
Cheryl also going to the Lost Zone means you're going to lose out on that healing in the late game. We haven't had a chance to see these decks get truly set up and really initiate their strategies.
Yeah, the Cheryl's a super interesting tech in this deck.
Just to keep up in the damage race, right? Especially with the powerful colorless energy. If your opponent's trying to set up a 2-turn knockout, you're going to try to use the Cheryl to deny that as much as possible. And just double checking the hand now after the Chorus's experiment. 5 cards off the top, 3 added to the hand, and 2 more to the Lost Zone. Loses a VIP pass and a Metal Energy.
Yeah, I think he was taking a moment there to just make sure it's okay if he loses that Metal Energy. Like we said, you don't love sending energies to the Lost Zone, but it's part of the deck. You have to do it at some point.
And Scoop Up Net brings the Comfey back to the hand. Promotes the second one, another flower selecting. Temple of Sinnoh number 2 offered alongside a switch. There is escape rope in hand, so might opt to not take the switch.
Yeah, has the escape rope, which is going to allow him to get this hit off on Lugia, and I think he's got the pieces as well to do it with the Hisuian Gudra V-Star. There's that V-Star in hand. There's a couple Mirage Gate and already an energy in the hand as well. So assuming this Mirage Gate can grab out a water and a metal, we're going to be seeing our first Rolling Iron here.
Beautiful. And just while you're looking in the deck, just double check those energies, make sure your counts are correct. There's the attachment with the Mirage Gate, and now Michael can use that escape rope, promote this Gudra V, evolve into Gudra V Star, and get the train rolling.
Yeah, and this is a really good spot for sure. And the Temple of Sinnoh coming down is going to slow Regan down a little bit. It's going to limit his Eviltal options. Now, obviously, oh no, this is not the game where Regan has prized 3 Auroras, right? That was the last game that was, right? Okay. Yeah. So it's definitely really strong for Michael to get that Temple of Sinnoh out into play because it will make it so that Regan cannot go for the Eviltal unless he finds a way to get rid of that Temple. And we know he's already down a Lost Vacuum. He's already down a Pumpkaboo. He does have a second Lost Vacuum, so that's going to be his out here. Yeah,
the second Vacuum is in the prizes. So Regan's going to need to try to find one cheeky knockout somewhere before he gets locked down with the Temple. Lugia V comes up to the active. Michael was double-checking the discard pile, taking note of how many Archeops were there, how many potential energies Regan had access to. This is going to influence his decision on whether he wants to play the Temple now.
Yeah,
it's still a really strong play regardless.
I think you've got to play the Temple now. I mean, it's maybe a little bit of a reach for Regan to get to the Eviltal this turn, but it is entirely possible.
You can never underestimate Lugia, because as soon as that V-Star comes out, you search the Archeops, etc.
Yeah, and so Michael does put this Temple in play. He was debating it, but I'm glad he chose to go this route. I think it's definitely the correct play. And Regan will draw for turn here. He's looking once again for a way to get one more Archeops in the discard pile, and he does top deck it in the form of Ultra Ball.
Ultra Ball, 2 discards, finds Archeops, and then just needs one way to get it into the discard pile. There are 2 quick balls in the prizes too.
Yeah, it has one more in hand.
One more in the hand. Okay,
yeah, he's
so
got
it is
the way
all
to
put
do
together.
Yep. Now Regan is looking at Luminion V. It looks like he's maybe just going to discard it with the Ultra Ball here.
Yeah, just thinking through the turn, this is a lot of pressure. You've got the damaged Lugia V in the active, Temple of Sinnoh turning off the bonus effects of your special energy, and pulls the trigger, decides to discard the Raikou and the Luminion V.
Yep, going down, and this is grabbing the Archeops. Now the Quick Ball can maybe fetch out something like that Orangaroo. It looks like Regan has another Lugia V in the hand, and he chose to keep that over discarding it and hanging on to something like the Luminion. So that maybe signals to me that Regan is planning on attacking with a second Lugia V-Star in this game.
Do we have one V-Star in the hand? I didn't quite scope it out, Chip. So hopefully the Oranguru maybe finds it off the top. Regan got that Luminion last time. Should be pretty easy to find something that can find that Lugia V-Star.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, he actually does not have that piece just yet. I have to imagine he has a supporter in hand, though, if he was willing to discard the Luminion, right? So since he discarded Luminion, he's almost certainly got a Researcher Marnie or something.
Okay, so that is the piece right now that Regan needs. There's going to be basically, with the Marnie, 6 cards here to find the Lugia V-Star.
That's right, yep. Oranguru plus the Marnie, or Marnie first actually, is the way you got to do it. And sure enough, here it comes. Marnie shuffling both players' hands. Michael will only get 4. Regan will have 5 to work with. Let's see if there's a Lugia V-Star.
This is very important as well because Michael was able to complete the setup with the V-Star. The Marnie doesn't sting as much.
Oh, I don't see it just yet, Adam.
Primate
he needs
wisdom.
to find it. It's got to be a clutch guru. Once again, Oranguru came through for him in game number 2. Can Guru be the MVP once more? Let's see it. No, not this time. Not this time.
Because you whiff on the V-Star this turn, this Lugia V is going to go down. Michael's going to keep the pressure going with the V-Star in that rolling iron. Regan did bench the second Lugia V, so hopefully can get one more turn to find that V-Star.
This is going to put Regan really far behind on the tempo here. Even though the attack from a Lugia V-Star this turn would have likely had all the damage healed off by the Gudra's Moisture Star, I mean, it's still what you needed to do. You need to force that Moisture Star. You also can use that Tempest Dive attack to, of course, discard the Temple of Sinnoh. Instead, Regan just has to go for a really weak Read the Wind. It does add 3 cards to the hand, but this is just not the spot you want to be in.
Especially has to discard the Professor's Research because the hand is full of energy. Has to keep a Marnie to shuffle those back in.
I think there's a little bit of a question here. Regan attached a Capture Energy and didn't shuffle the deck, but the reason for that is because Temple of Sinnoh is in play. So Capture Energy does not work. So yeah, can't good on our judges just making sure that that is all good and fine, and it indeed is. So we're good to keep rolling.
I'm glad that they caught that, just double checking, especially at this pivotal moment of the game, Chip. It's over to Michael, and he's benching Luminion V.
Yeah, normally something that can be a liability, but in a spot where you are ahead on the tempo, it is not too bad of a thing to put down.
Especially with the Marnie that just happened, with Regan discarding that Professor's Research. Michael probably has signaled that there's another Marnie incoming. He's just going to get as much value and draw this turn before the hand gets shuffled away. Goes with the Colress's Experiment. This is going to give him more cards, 5 more off of the top, 2 more in the Lost Zone, 3 to the hand.
Yep, and this will keep building up that hand size. I think he'd like to try to get another Gudra V established at some point, but it's going to be really difficult for Regan to deal with this active Gudra. Maybe the one thing Michael would like to get would be a big Parasol, and that is what he's able to find. And the big Parasol,
my goodness.
The reason the big Parasol is huge here is because Michael knows that most Lugia lists only play 3 outs to Temple of Sinnoh, being the Pumpkaboo, the 2 vacuums, right? That's what most Lugia lists play. He knows Regan's down the Pumpkaboo because he started it, and he knows that Regan is down the Lost Vacuum because he played it on turn 1. So Regan only has 1 Lost Vacuum left. We know that it's in the prize cards, but Michael doesn't, right? So if there is 1 Lost Vacuum left, there is actually no way for Regan to remove both Temple of Sinnoh and Big Parasol in play. So by putting Big Parasol onto this active Gudra, there is absolutely no way that Regan can pull off an Eviltal attack because he cannot Lost Vacuum away Big Parasol and Temple. So if he gets rid of the Big Parasol, Temple's still in play, so those Aurora energies don't work. If he gets rid of the Temple, Big Parasol's in play, which protects the Gudra from that amazing destruction attack.
An exquisite checkmate scenario, and Michael taking 2 prize cards, and Regan does pick up that Lugia V-Star.
Yeah, finally finds it. It is just a little too late, but he's still going to keep around here. I mean, anything is possible in the Pokemon TCG. He's going to fight it out and see if he can find a route to victory here. But, I mean, any damage that gets done to this Gudra, Michael is just going to completely remove with the Moisture Star V-Star power.
Especially with the Temple of Sinnoh. With that lost vacuum in the prizes, there's no way for Regan to get rid of this temple. So it's just negating the extra effect of these powerful energies, trying to boost that damage. So you just can't hit this Gudra V-Star as hard as you need to overcome that reduction, overcome that healing.
Now, Regan can remove the Temple of Sinnoh by attacking with the Lugia V-Star, which is what he's going to try to do with the Tempest Dive. So if he can set up a situation where he goes, get rid of the Temple of Sinnoh and find the lost vacuum off the prizes, maybe by KOing something on the bench like a Luminion or a Gudra V, then maybe he can find a way to use Amazing Rare Eviltal to KO a Gudra V-Star that's been using Rolling Iron. But as it stands, he's played Marnie this turn. He can't go for a boss play now.
And the longer this takes, you got to remember, Chip, there's a chance of drawing these energies into the hand, so you can't accelerate them with Primal Turbo, and that makes things even more awkward. A couple of Marnies have already been used just to find the resources and complete the setup. And if you're forced to, accelerate to Luminion and try to shuffle them back into the deck with Aqua Return, it just gives Michael so much time and breathing room to just keep pressuring, pushing through damage with that Rolling Iron, and still just waiting and sitting on the Moisture Star as well. So Regan has a very, very steep mountain to climb here.
Yeah, it's a very uphill battle at this point. I think if Regan could have gone with a Gust play this turn, it would have been really good. But yeah, his hand was just not good enough to pull it off. He had to go with the Marnie.
And after the Marnie, we've got another Lugia, an Evolution Incense, the cards that help you start your setup but don't really matter here in the mid game. Just another manual attachment negated by the Temple of Sinnoh.
And this Tempest Dive will deal 140 damage after the 80 damage reduction that the Gudra takes. So it does set it up for a theoretical 2-hit KO, but that's where the Moisture Star comes in so strong.
Evolution Incense now finds the Lugia V-Star, and this is just after the Primate Wisdom to shuffle that card back into the deck. We want an even stronger chance of getting a better top deck.
Yep, really smart. Shuffle the deck here, force that shuffle so that you don't drop into that card, and it also is going to thin out the Lugia V-Star, so that's guaranteed a card you as well will not draw into because it's pretty useless.
And at this point, Regan doesn't really have much left to do. Can just get what damage is available with the Lugia V-Star in the active, and things are going to go back over to Michael. Tempest Dive discards the Temple of Sinnoh, so things are starting to work back into Regan's favor, and it's up to Michael now to really solidify his lead to keep Regan from scraping back into this Game 3.
And to be honest, Michael doesn't have much off of the Marnie. He's got a Capture Energy to shuffle the deck. That is pretty nice because he did have some pretty decent cards go to the bottom here. He can maybe grab out another Comfey, something like that, but might just leave the bench space open. He will have the Moisture Star hanging on, so he'll be in an okay spot, but is going to be pressured to try to find another Gudra V-Star. And the awkward thing about this deck as well is it doesn't actually play any ways to search for the Gudra V-Star. There's no Ultra Ball. There's no Evolution Incense. You really are relying on just raw drawing into that card through like a Colress's Experiment.
Yeah, with Colress's Experiment and Flower Selecting, you do see a lot more cards. The Marnies have been a little bit more impactful throughout this early game than I may have been letting on, Chip. But the Cramorant is found off of the Capture Energy, and it's just a matter of getting that final V-Star. One was sent to the Lost Zone earlier.
That's true,
So we know that there is one more left to be found.
Gonna have to find the one. Michael does play Raihan in the deck, so that is the one way that he can try to search it out. But, oh yeah, it's only one copy actually in this list, and it's already in the Lost Zone as well.
Yeah, so really coming up empty, trying to find that second V-Star, and that means that Michael has to be very specific about protecting this one. Even goes for the Moisture Star, as you talked about, Chip, to fully heal the Gudra V-Star in the active, and now by essentially swinging the damage trade back into his favor. There's a damaged now Lugia V-Star in the active for Regan, and Gudra V-Star is incredibly healthy.
So Regan has a boss's orders in hand, and I think this is a pretty decent turn to chase something down. Try to go after this Gudra V on the bench, And if Regan checked his Lost Vacuums, that's kind of a card you wouldn't always think to check your prize cards for.
Yeah.
Maybe in this matchup he would be very mindful of that, but if he knows that there's a Lost Vacuum prized and he uses Boss's Orders, he's playing to the odds. He knows that there's a 33% chance that he's going to take a Lost Vacuum out of the prizes if he takes 2. So might be playing to those odds. He's already got the Amazing Rare Eviltal in the hand. So if he takes Lost Vacuum, he has the Eviltal. He can set up for the Amazing Destruction next turn.
And Regan is almost forced to take a line like that this turn because this damaged V-Star is going to go down. There's no other attacker that can take its place at the current moment, especially nothing that's going to threaten the V-Star in a meaningful way. So getting the knockout here is at the very least going to tie things up.
We're seeing the fail of the Archeops. He's just searching the deck, checking the resources. Doesn't want to accelerate anything at this point. Just wanting to make sure he is totally aware of what he has and doesn't have available.
And so with the Archeops also being used, that's another attacker that can't be fully set up. Orangaru's Primate Wisdom pulls another energy from the deck, and this is what I talked about, Chip. The longer that Regan kind of flounders in the mid game, the higher the chance that these energies come to the hand. It could completely clog him up.
He's got the boss. He's thinking of playing it. Just doing a little bit of math. I think it's a good time to go for it. Sure enough, Regan will agree. Boss's Orders get up here, Gudra V, and it looks like we're going to see a Tempest dive to take it out.
Especially now with the Temple of Sinnoh gone, we have the pieces in place now to get the knockout. And taking down the Gudra V means that this V-Star is going to be the remaining threat that Regan needs to deal with. This, even though this is a Lost Box deck, we don't have any of those other signature attackers, no Rayquaza, no Raikou. It's all about the Gudra. So now with the V-Star being the remainder that you can kind of play around, from this point, Regan is going to try to start sniping the Lumineon V, going to try to get around it to take out a Comfey or maybe a Cramorant to find those final prizes.
This is one thing I was thinking Regan was potentially going to be missing out on this turn, and that is going to be the energy onto an Archeops to retreat it on the next turn. This is allowing Regan to set up for the Eviltal play, and the way he's going to try to close this game out is by taking 2 prizes here, using the Lost Vacuum that he's just taken off of the prize cards to knock out the Gudra for 2 prizes, and then he's going to try to use Stoutland's Double Dip Fangs to KO a Comfey to close this one out. Michael does have a way to respond to this, however. If he can find a Boss's Orders this turn and take out an Archeops, it's going to be really difficult for Regan to power up an Amazing Rare Eviltal.
And hopefully Michael sees the line. This was something that Kyle Sablehouse has been pointing out, that sometimes players have that line of, what if I just take down an Archeops and they don't see it or they don't have the resources to go for it. So Michael Bergerac going for flower selecting. Maybe the pieces will come together. Roxanne and Colress's Experiment being offered. I believe there's one Roxanne in the Lost Zone, and now that Regan is putting up a little bit more of a fight, he is incentivized to keep that Roxanne for that final piece of disruption.
So I don't see the boss yet, and I don't know if there's a way that Michael can really dig for it once again. He has Escape Rope in hand in order to go into another Comfey. That would be the one way. If he can Escape Rope into Comfey, you know, Regan will probably send up something like Pumpkaboo, maybe a Rengaroo, something like that this turn, and then Michael can use Capture Energy to manually retreat, and then if he finds specifically Boss off of the flower selecting, it pays off nicely for him. But if he doesn't specifically find Boss's Orders, he gets really punished for that play, so he's going to think better of it for now.
Yeah, so Boss's Orders being scoped out. This is going to give Michael an opportunity as well to look through the deck, reevaluate the resources that are left.
And this is tough, where Michael has chosen to play Roxanne instead of Marnie in his list. If he had Marnie and that Roxanne was a Marnie instead, he could slam that down right now and disrupt Regan's pretty sizable hand. But because it's Roxanne, Regan's only taken 2 prizes. He has not gotten to that point where Roxanne is a live play just yet.
And if, you know, the Hisuian Gudra V-Star goes down, the Roxanne might buy you another couple turns, but you don't have as much damage threat as you need. You know, the Drapions not doing anything in this spot. There's no Sableye in the list as well to come through as a final savior in the late game.
All right, it's going to be the Rolling Iron. That takes Lugia V-Star out. Michael is down to just 2 prizes remaining. but I think Regan's got the play lined up here, Adam. The Eviltal's in the hand, and we know Lost Vacuum was taken off the prizes.
Lost Vacuum is beautiful. This will remove the big Parasol, opening up that attack to instantly knock out Hisuian Gudra V-Star, regardless of how much HP it has. Now we just have the Primal Turbos to get all of the energies out of the deck and attach to the Eviltal.
If Regan or Michael last turn could have found Temple of Sinnoh, that would have eliminated this play as well. So that was one more thing he could have potentially hit, and he just didn't quite get there.
And of course, this maybe comes down to the choice of not going for the Colress there if it's in the top 5.
Yeah, sure.
And there's a note where do I want to play towards a reactive, style of what my opponent is going to do on their turn, or do I want to try to find something that facilitates mine?
Leans back in his chair, reeling a little bit at the hit of the Lost Vacuum, and Regan's got the energies lined up. Double Aurora energy off the first Primal Turbo. Second Primal Turbo gets the double turbo and another Aurora energy out of nowhere. Amazing destruction. Eviltal doesn't care about this rolling iron, doesn't care about the reduced damage. It's going to KO this Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
Absolutely unbelievable to find the threading the needle where there's no Temple of Sinnoh and getting rid of the big Parasol to get this amazing destruction. It's so important for Regan's game plan in this matchup. In game number 3, there's a minute and a half left on the clock, and it looks like this game will indeed find a conclusion. Luminion V also being added into the mix and finding the Marnie to seal Michael's ability to respond.
Yeah, absolutely massive. Michael has started to build up a large hand size once again, and I think that is also really smart from Regan because he saw Michael choose to Lost Zone Colress's experiment, and he saw Michael not play a supporter, so he is assuming Michael is holding on to a pretty decent supporter in this current hand.
So a beautiful read there. As you make your decisions with Lost Box, you're also signaling a lot to your opponent what you might be adding to your hand instead. Primate Wisdom just to finish off this turn. Pulls another energy to the hand, and there's the Marnie.
Marnie will be played. Michael, of course, also having that Luminion V in play. That becomes a live target for something like Radiant Charizard next turn for Regan to try to close this one out. There are many ways Regan could win the game next turn, and Michael is going to have much fewer responses available to this specific play this turn. Now, Michael did get the Cramorant in play a couple of turns ago. That is a way he will be able to respond to the Amazing Rare Eviltal. It does just take a knockout. It does 110 damage. Eviltal has 110 HP. So Michael can take the KO and respond. But that gives Regan the turn to try to come back and find the way to close it out on the Luminion.
Yeah, as you said, Chip, needs to find that Stoutland next.
Yeah, and even putting the Choice Belt on the Archeops is also heads up because he can actually use Speedwing on Archeops to potentially KO Luminion in combination with some powerful colorless energy, so that might be an out for him as well. Michael could take the Luminion out of play here as well. He doesn't have to KO this Eviltal with the Cramorant. He could use Luminion's Aqua Return, and that was probably going to be the best play for him. Take his lose condition out of play.
Oh, and just a small note for our viewers, there was a small time extension in the round. You got to remember Regan had that broken sleeve.
Is that indicated by our timer, though, I imagine?
So that was already set up.
So we are coming down to turn 0, and this is actually pretty interesting here how this works out. If time is called before Michael promotes a Pokemon and draws for turn, let's see when it happens. It's going to be close. Okay, Michael draws for turn, and now time has been called. So Michael will be turn 0. But if Michael had drawn his card about 1 second later, Regan would have been turn 0 and Michael would have been turn 1. That would have given Regan only 1 more turn. That is massive for Regan in this spot because now he has 2 more turns to play the game.
2 more turns, 2 more prizes, 2 shots at glory. Round 14 is coming to an exciting conclusion, Chip, and both of these players are trying to solidify their spot in top 8.
This is really difficult for Michael to navigate here. He can attack with the Cramorant and knock out Eviltal. If he does that, then Regan can win with Boss's Orders or Serena on the Luminion with the Archeops. Okay, he can also use Aqua Return. And if he uses Aqua Return, he shuffles back in the Luminion. He does have Mirage Gate in hand, and it looks like an energy as well. He shuffles back in the Luminion, takes that out of play, and then Regan can potentially win with the double dip Fangs on the Stoutland. So Regan's got a couple of ways to potentially close this out. Michael has to determine which of those 2 paths is less likely for my opponent to hit. Because if Michael can knock out this Eviltal here with something like Cramorant or the Luminion, he can win by next turn KOing the Pumpkaboo on Regan's bench with whichever other one he doesn't attack with.
And so Mirage Gate is played. The 2 energies are put onto the top of the deck. And they need to find their targets. There is a Goodra in the hand. Maybe Michael was thinking about wanting to attach to the Goodra, but plays the Mirage Gate first.
Yeah, did he forget to bench it before he played the Mirage Gate?
I think that still attaching Luminion is fine. It's just a matter of getting the Comfey out of the active. But now you're locked into this play, my friend. Just follow through.
That's what he's going to have to go with. Maybe wanted to attack with the Goodra V. It does have a little bit more HP than Luminion. It does not get KO'd by something like the Archeops.
So here comes the Luminion V, and this also matters as well because Regan has 2 turns. So by attacking with the Aqua Return, you then have to promote a single prize Pokemon, which Regan can pick off, and then on that final turn, Michael is going to absolutely need to take a knockout.
Yeah, so Michael is going to make it as difficult as possible here. Now, he actually does not have it just yet. He needs to get this Comfey out of the active because he needs to attach return to Luminion. So he needs a switching card here, and I don't think I see it. He has Capture Energy. Yeah, I think he now may just have to attack with the Cramorant.
Yeah, so Capture Energy has to be manually attached. Aqua Return takes 3 energies, not just the 2 from the Mirage Gate. Finds the Comfey off of the Capture Energy, of course. Now we can retreat this, bring up the Cramorant to do 110, take down the Yveltal.
And Adam, we know Regan has Serena in hand. He put it on top of his deck before he played Marnie, so that is waiting in the hand.
That was the Primate Wisdom card.
Yeah, that was the Primate Wisdom card. So he has Serena ready to go to KO this Luminion. Michael has to find a way to get it out of play. Oh, the Mirage Gate and the Colress. Those are 2 cards he needed to find, but he didn't need to find them off of the Flower Selecting. He wants both of those in his hand. He needs the Mirage Gate to get that extra energy onto Luminion, but he needs the Colress to dig for a switching card. He's got Ordinary Rod in hand, though. He's got Ordinary Rod in hand, so he can put the energies back. That's not too big of an issue here for him. The issue is instead going to be...
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, is instead going to be, does he have another Mirage Gate? That's the big question.
And Mirage Gate goes to the Lost Zone. This is going to be the final piece. Keeps the Colress.
Yeah, he has to find Mirage Gate plus a switch card, either Scoop Up Net or Switch. He can't really escape rope here.
These 5 cards are enormous.
Switch. There's escape rope, or there is the Scoop Up Net, but no Mirage Gate. Michael is not going to be able to clear this Luminion out of play, and his win condition is now going to become attacking with the Cramorant and just hoping that Regan does not have a way to Gust KO the Luminion.
And Regan is just waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
Has the Serena, reveals it.
He's got it. Michael probably asked him in that spot. If you've got Serena, I'm sure Michael probably said something along the lines, if you've got Serena, I lose. Regan shows it to him, and Regan is the winner. Regan is making his first top 8 as a master. Let's go.
Top 8. What an awesome outcome for this best of 3. Being congratulated on the stage by Isaiah Bradner, his coach and mentor from when he was a senior.
Yeah,
very impressive indeed.
Michael Bergerac played very well, but just didn't quite have it at the end. The pieces didn't quite come together for him. He's not eliminated, still at 33 match points, but he's going to have to play 1 more win and end. So he will see if he can bring that Goodra to a top 8 finish.
Yeah, the Goodra was piloted beautifully, and we just saw, you know, player scoops, and then in game number 3, it still felt a little clunky, right? The Goodra V-Star couldn't really put in as much work, and because that Lugia V-Star got a chance to do the Tempest Dive a couple times, get rid of those temples, and when it all came down to it, he whiffed on that 3rd Temple of Sinnoh.
Yep.
Could not stop that Yveltal from finally getting that destruction through to get that one-hit KO, and that's what really kept Regan in the game.
And it's funny how things lined up almost perfectly for Regan, where he bosses orders, takes out that Goodra V on the bench, and off of his prizes is able to find that Lost Vacuum. If he doesn't find the Lost Vacuum, the game looks totally different, right? If the Lost Vacuum is just in one of the top prizes or even the middle prize cards, but because of when they got laid out, they were down at the bottom, Regan knew, okay, got a 33% chance to grab it. What do you know? He hits it. Yeah,
and in game number 3, Radiant Greninja was in the prizes, so that's a little bit less card draw that Michael had to maybe dig for those important pieces and counter options. So you can really see how the decisions that you make when you're building the deck
Right.
just come back to haunt you. Like no heavy ball,
Yeah.
you know, really mattered in the second game because the Gudra Vs were in the prizes.